I've got no conflict of interest. I'm afraid I cannot promise that if you listen to my talk, you will get all your papers in the New England Journal of Medicine. But I can show you the traps which are often not avoided, and the traps that if you fall into them, mean that you will not get your paper published. And I'm going to demonstrate how to structure a scientific project paper and deal with reviewers' responses to maximize your chances. So first of all, get an experienced mentor. Your paper is very good, Teddy. I've done my best. Get an experienced mentor, somebody who will help you when you're starting out. If you think Professor X is good, ask his previous trainees. Talk to the current trainees. Does the professor read your book, your papers and grants, and comment? If you're being mentored, what are your expectations? Do they meet regularly with you? Is that person somebody who's going to go the extra mile for you? So you need help. We all need help when we're starting out. Getting published often looks like this. Here is the person trying to get published, and all these nasty people in the way trying to stop it happening. So getting started. Are you excited? If you're not excited by your paper, nobody else is going to be either, and you won't get published. Does it fit the journal? So for example, if the New England Journal does not publish cell or animal work, so don't send it there. I'm going to say a word about journals that email you. I get perhaps 6 emails a day saying, will you publish in the Journal of Geriatric Gynecology? Well, I'm a pediatrician, so no, but these are all journals who want to make you pay to publish your work. Go nowhere near them. They're just not worth it. There are some open journals like British Medical Journal Open, ERJ Open. Yes, they're worthwhile. But if they want you to pay, don't go there. Style it so it looks like the journal, it fits the journal. And read the instructions to authors and follow them. They apply to you. If the journal says you have 500 words for the methods, do not write 1,000 words. If the paper has to be no more than 3,000 words, if you send me as the editor 6,000 words, the paper will come straight back to you. Get the title right. Does it grab the attention and make a statement? Here's one example of a bad title. Some preliminary observation on the odds ratios of specific genetic, epigenetic, and environmental factors which may lead to murine rodents wholly or partially consuming domesticated feline species. Anybody got any idea what that means? Well, why mice eat cats? You know, keep it simple and short. By the time I finish reading that title, I've lost any interest in the paper. And the abstract is your shop window. It may be the only part read. It's certainly the first bit that's going to be read. You've got to grab interest and attention with the abstract. Style it like the journal wants. If they have headings, use them. Do not use lots of initials, acronyms, because it's a turn-off. Be sure it contains enough numbers to convince that there's real data there. And you've got to steer between over-bloated claims and false modesty. And make sure the punchline, the last sentence, is gripping and accurate. So in the introduction, you write, why did you do this paper? Why did you write it? And it's got to be focused and relevant. If there are any systematic reviews or meta-analyses, you've got to show you understand the literature. You've got to show the importance of the problem and why what you've done is logical, why the problem has not been solved and why you might have solved it. Above all, there's got to be hypotheses, aims and objectives. If there is no hypothesis, your paper will not get published. And it must be clearly stated at the end of the background and must be a logical development from the background. And it must generate enthusiasm. There are only two questions worth asking about any research project. So what and what for? If you can't answer those questions, your paper's dead. The methods is what you did, and I need to be able to reproduce your study from what you have written in the methods. The selection criteria. If the journal has an online supplement, use it. How did you check data entry accuracy? You've got to have a statistical section, and there must be a power calculation or a reason why you haven't done one. If you do lots and lots and lots of comparisons, if you do 100 comparisons, 5 will be significant at the 5% level. And that's not interesting. You've got to cope with that. So there must be a logical level of significance. And you must say what tools you've used for the statistics. The results are what you found. And you need to use, if you're doing epidemiology, or use consort strobe diagrams. Start with a patient population. KISS. KISS is very good advice for everybody. This is Rodin's sculpture, the KISS, and KISS stands for Keep It Simple, Stupid. Very good advice in all contexts for all doctors, particularly old ones like me. Focused analyses is no good doing hopeful multiple comparisons and trawling through the data. Don't do endless post hoc analyses because these are at best hypothesis generating. And don't fudge the findings. If it's p equals 0.07, you've missed the primary endpoint, your trial is negative. It's no good saying it's slightly positive. It's like saying my girlfriend is slightly pregnant. Either she is pregnant or she isn't. Either the trial is positive or it isn't. Important not to confuse mechanisms with individuals, and I'll show you what I mean. What is a statistically significant difference between groups may help predict mechanisms, but may be no use for clinical decisions. So here, this is a study, as it happens on cystinoid leukotrienes, acute asthma before treatment, after treatment, and controls. And you can see there's a significant fall in these levels. But actually, if you look, most of them are within the normal range. So this is never going to be a tool that I'm going to use in the clinic to monitor individuals. And the discussion, what it means. And you mustn't repeat the introduction. Issues of interpretation, remember association is not the same as causation. Just because you see firemen with hoses putting out a fire doesn't mean they started the fire. And you can't draw longitudinal conclusions from cross-sectional studies, and I'll show you what I mean in a moment. So, you see this time and again. A correlates with B, therefore A causes B. No, B could cause A. C could cause A and B. If you want to find out about causation, you need a longitudinal study to show that A comes first, or intervention, if you block A, that B doesn't happen. Don't extrapolate wildly. If I've done a study in severe asthma in my clinic, it doesn't mean it's going to apply to primary care. Are the data important clinically or mechanistically? Now, I recommend, particularly if you're starting out, to use these 5 headings for your discussion. Start by the statement of principal findings. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the study? There are always some problems. What are the strengths and weaknesses with respect to other studies? Any discrepant results? What does the study mean? And what are the unanswered questions in future research? And I find these 5 headings really quite a useful way to think about structuring a discussion. You don't have to use them. There are many other systems, but if you're starting out, think about using these. Spell out the implications. If you say these findings will have important clinical implications for X, it just means you haven't really thought about it. You haven't thought in any clear way. If you can't spell out what it means, you're dead. Your study is dead. What about case reports? We all love to talk about our interesting cases. If there are 2 or 3 doctors, they'll be talking about their cases. But editors don't like publishing them because they're not cited. So if you're going to try and get a case report published, it's got to have a really good take-home message. You've got to be learned from it. This is the 17th case report in the literature. So what? First report in Estonia. Very interesting for Estonia, not internationally. The first association between 2 rare conditions. Well, again, so what? You're never going to see it again. Genetics. Avoid single nucleotide polymorphisms with no biological readout. Association with no plausibility or validation. No second validation population, or it replicates different polymorphisms in the same gene. So you send off your paper, and what you hope is that you'll immediately get an email back saying, this is the best paper I have ever read, but you can make it even longer. And it's not going to happen. And you wait, and when you get the paper back, you get lots and lots of criticisms. And you feel very cross about it. How dare anybody criticize your wonderful paper? So before you do anything, you wait a day or 2, you calm down, you maybe drink a few glasses of wine and say a lot of rude words very loudly in a quiet room somewhere, but then you think about responding. Start by saying you're grateful. Even if you're not grateful, say you are grateful, and thank them for their helpful comments. Even if you think the referees were idiots, don't say so, because that's not a good way of getting your paper published. Remember, the referees are likely very experienced people. This is Professor Adam Jaffe, who, when he got a grant back from somewhere saying that he had not been given the money, he wrote back a single rude word to his research fellow, but it went back to the journal by mistake. This is not good. So you've got to go through it, go through the responses, answer it point by point. Make it easy for the reviewers. Say what you've done, what you've inserted, and where you've inserted it, so he can go straight back and see it. If there is something that the reviewer asked for that you can't do, or you don't think you should do, by all means say so, but you've got to make a good case as to why you're not going to do it. This is because the reviewer is an experienced person. And remember, if the reviewer hasn't understood your paper, it's probably not because the reviewer is an idiot, but more likely that you haven't written the paper clearly and you've got to make it clear. And remember also, the reviewer is going to be somebody who's likely a friend of the editor, so don't call him an idiot. So what are the top tips for getting your paper rejected? These are Vic Chernick's top 10 tips. You didn't read the instructions. There's a major conflict of interest. You're writing a paper about a device that you're making money out of. The manuscript was not checked for errors. These days of spell check, it's very easy to do. This is the 19th case of something. Well, that's not interesting. No changes after submission elsewhere. If you get a paper back and it's rejected, have a look at what the reviewers have said. because this is the sort of constructive feedback that you might well, and you should benefit from if the reviewer's done a good job, but also it may go back to the same reviewer. And if the reviewer sees you've paid no attention to what he or she has said, that's not good. Is there a hypothesis? If you haven't stated a clear hypothesis that you're trying to prove or disprove, you're going to be in trouble. Every single paper in any journal will be subject to software that sees if you've copied it from somewhere else. If you've taken a big chunk of material out of another paper, it will be detected, even if it's your own. Now, obviously, if you're doing a series of papers with the same methods, that's okay. But you will be detected. One of the most unsuccessful attempts I ever came across, when I was a deputy editor for an American journal, we got a letter from the editor of the Polish medical journal who said, we got sent a paper from another part of the world with 5,000 spirometry measurements in normal people. And we sent it to a referee, and the referee said, this is a direct translation of my own paper, claiming my own paper, translation into Polish. So it was not accepted. Get the statistics right. Ask the statistician to help you. If it's rambling, if it's unfocused, if there's initials all over the place, and finally, if it's boring, you will not get published. So we've all had papers rejected. This is something that's worth remembering. The opinions of others concerning you depend not at all or very little upon what you are, but upon what they are. Sell yourself well, whatever you are doing. Get a good mentor in your corner. Now, this is probably, in England, this Gray's Anatomy, the anatomy textbook, is probably the most famous textbook there is. Do you have a translation in the Ukraine? Do you use this book? It's 160 years old, 40 editions. When it first came out, the book reviewer said it was the worst book he'd ever seen, and it's still going strong. So we've all been rejected. And this is Kung Fu Panda. Anybody watch Kung Fu Panda? Well, Kung Fu Panda had to learn to believe in himself, and above all, believe in yourself, and good luck. And remember, thank you for listening. Don't forget always to respond in a mature way to criticism, just like my grandson, who, as you can see, is giving his views that we have often wished to give to people who have rejected our papers. So thank you very much for your attention, and very happy to take questions.